On February 19, 2026, President Trump posted a single message on Truth Social that sent shockwaves through the UAP disclosure community. He would be directing the Secretary of War, his term for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and other agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien life, UAP, and UFOs. The post came hours after Barack Obama publicly stated he believed aliens were real. But there was a word missing from Trump's statement, a word that changes everything. He said, releasing. He never said, declassify. That single word is the crux of the entire story. Under Executive Order 13526, every classified document in the federal government has an original classification authority, the official who decides whether it stays secret. A social media post directing agencies to release files does not override those authorities. Only a formal declassification order does. As investigative journalist Ross Coulthart warned, unless he orders all these government agencies to declassify these files immediately, forthwith, it'll never happen. Trump's directive contained no timeline, no enforcement mechanism, no binding deadlines on any agency. It was, in legal terms, an expression of intent, not an executive order. 6 days later, Defense Secretary Hegseth addressed the directive publicly. "We're going to be in full compliance," he said, adding that the Pentagon was eager to provide that for the president. But he immediately hedged, "Expectations are going to be high. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So, we're going to take a little time." He announced coordination between the DoD, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and the White House to consolidate existing UAP records. No release date was given. The bureaucratic machinery had begun to move, slowly, carefully, and entirely on its own timeline. Then, just 5 days after Trump's announcement, the Navy delivered a stunning contradiction. On February 24th, the Office of the Judge Advocate General denied a FOIA appeal filed by the Black Vault for 78 classified UAP photographs. These are images the Navy itself has confirmed exist. The denial cited Exemption B1, classified national defense information, and stated that segregation was not possible, meaning not even redacted versions could be released. The Navy's classification authority had overruled the president's stated intent without breaking a single regulation. This is exactly what happens when you say release instead of declassify. Meanwhile, the Pentagon's own UAP Investigation Office, ARO, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, is sitting on a mountain of unfulfilled obligations. They have examined over 2,000 UAP cases. Roughly 1,000 additional reports lack sufficient data and sit in what they call an active archive. Volume 2 of the Historical Record Report, mandated by Congress in the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, has never been published. Their 2025 annual report is overdue. In August 2025, ARO held an invite-only research workshop with about 40 attendees. It produced a 17-page white paper on methodology, but zero disclosures. 5 distinct legal barriers stand between these files and the public. First, Executive Order 13526 gives each agency control over its own classifications. Second, the Atomic Energy Act of 1954 locks any records intersecting with nuclear weapons or nuclear-powered craft under Department of Energy authority. The President cannot unilaterally declassify these. Third, intelligence agencies withhold imagery and sensor data to protect collection capabilities. Fourth, FOIA exemptions, particularly B1, B7A, and B7E, are actively deployed as shields. ARO itself has used the law enforcement exemption for UAP files, and the DoD redacted nearly all records explaining why. Fifth, unacknowledged special access programs, USAPs, exist in a legal twilight zone where the government's standard response is to neither confirm nor deny their existence. And there is a sixth barrier that sits outside government entirely. If recovered materials are held by defense contractors, they may fall beyond the reach of any executive order or FOIA request. So what specifically might be released if the walls came down? Start with Immaculate Constellation, an alleged unacknowledged special access program created in 2017 to collect and quarantine UAP imagery. Journalist Michael Schellenberger delivered a 12-page whistleblower document about it to Congress in November 2024. Former Pentagon intelligence analyst Matthew Brown later confirmed the program's existence on camera. The Pentagon denies it. Then there are those 78 Navy photographs. The Kona Blue program, a proposed DHS project to reverse engineer recovered craft that was rejected for lacking merit. Volume 2 of ARO's historical report. A heavily redacted DoD Inspector General report on UAP whistleblower reprisal. And 80-plus years of legacy records that Congress itself has said pose no conceivable threat to national security. Records that likely include, in Congress's own words, hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs and videos. On March 18th, the White House registered 2 new government domains, alien.gov and aliens.gov. Both were hosted on Cloudflare. Neither was active. When asked, White House spokeswoman Anna Kelly responded, "Stay tuned," with an alien emoji. The Pentagon referred all questions to the White House. It's worth noting what this is and what it isn't. It may become a public-facing UAP information portal, but registering a domain is not declassification. It's not releasing files, it's branding. Polymarket bettors, for what it's worth, gave only a 28 to 30% chance that new UFO files would be declassified by the end of March. Congress has been trying to force this issue through legislation for 3 years running. The UAP Disclosure Act, now in its 3rd iteration, was filed by Senator Schumer in July 2025 as an amendment to the fiscal year 2026 NDAA. It would create a presidential review board with a presumption of immediate disclosure for all federal UAP records. A 25-year maximum secrecy window unless the president personally certifies national security need, and critically, an eminent domain provision allowing the federal government to seize recovered technologies of unknown origin held by private entities. Both previous versions were gutted in conference committee. Representative Burchett has introduced the UAP Whistleblower Protection Act. The NDAA itself established a public UAP records collection at the National Archives. But legislation moves slowly, and the defense establishment has proven adept at diluting these provisions before they become law. Over a month has passed since Trump's announcement. Nothing has been declassified. The Navy denied a photo release 5 days later. ARO's reports remain overdue. The alien.gov domains sit empty. The question is no longer whether the president wants disclosure. It's whether his words carry the legal force to make it happen. Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, said it plainly. This might be a consequential moment, but the impact will depend on the follow-through. Retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet was blunter. As with other promises made by Trump, I'll believe it when I see it. The mechanisms for real disclosure exist. The Schumer Bill, a formal executive order, direct presidential declassification authority. but none of them have been activated. Until the word declassify appears in a binding legal document, not a social media post, the files stay locked, and the institutions holding them have shown repeatedly that they intend to keep it that way.